My whole life, I always knew I was special. Even with no remainders, I could always move a decimal. Money on my mind while the girls that made un beso. Hustlers in my blood and it's running through my vessels. Just trying to clear the threshold, just trying to make a way. In my race against time, I could see an early grave. School to prison pipeline, 12 years a slave. Suspension and detention is conditioned for a cage.
The next topic we're going to discuss on Boxing Bros is what makes a high-value man. No, actually, what we're going to discuss on Boxing Bros is should Canelo pursue a rematch against Dimitry Bivol? And we're going to flip this on its head, and we're going to go to Ned the TBE first before he falls asleep.
Oh, yeah. Nah, should Canelo pursue? Relax. Should Canelo pursue a rematch with Bivol? I think yes. I think Canelo should go back, have another camp where he watches this fight, watches all his mistakes, and then trains on changing it up and doing better. And show us the sweet science. Like Canelo, you've improved your defense so much. Let's see you put that to work instead of being aggressive. Because clearly Bivol was able to handle your power, and you switch it up. So should he pursue a rematch? Of course, I'd love to see a part 2 and maybe a part 3 because this is something that'd be a good dope trilogy match, and it came out of nowhere.
All right, dollar bill.
Nah, TB, he felt his power. You heard him. He was like, I can't even hold this belt up. My arm is killing me. He just got to find out where to place those punches, better placement of those punches, you know what I'm saying, and land right on the target. But I'm with you, TB, man. I would love to see him do it again. Canelo can do whatever he wants to do. Look, if he wants to test himself and wants to go in there and try again, why not? If anything, we should be like applauding it. If he wants to go in there and do it again, he's not tucking his tail behind his legs and running home and grabbing his ball and going home. Nah, if he still want to go out there and dare to be great, he want to never crack at it. He said no excuses. He got that one. Let's run it back. I'm not mad at him, and I think, I think he can do it. Just go in there with a different game plan. Show the world that you can box. We done seen you box before. Go in there. I think what happened was Canelo got so used of fighting in a certain way. And that he thought that he can go out there and fight that way again. And it just wasn't that time. And instead of switching it over, like Kaden was saying in the previous episode, maybe it was a little bit of not making no excuses because Canelo didn't make no excuses. Maybe, you fighting back to back guys and not having the proper rest. You look a little flat in there. So maybe if Canelo goes back, has a different training camp, takes some rest, instead of jumping back in there, because I'm hearing they want to go in there September 17th, and I think he needs a little bit more rest than that so he can be fresh.
Go in there December.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? This is what DAZN does. And they did this to Tevin Farmer. And Tevin Farmer was fighting back to back, and he ended up, it happens, you know what I'm saying? It was just too many fights back to back, just keep wearing down the fighter. Sometimes it's good to take a rest in between. Some of the greats have took years and 2 years off from the sport, to rest themselves. But yeah, I would love to see it again. And if Canelo's up for it, why not?
All right, Conspiracy G.
All right, I'm gonna keep it 100 with y'all. I disagree with both Ned and Trill on this one. I don't think Canelo should pursue the rematch for a couple of reasons. First, like the way y'all are looking at it, like Canelo played, had the wrong strategy. This is the Canelo playbook. Like Eddie Reynoso and Canelo, this has been a strategy for like the past 5 fights. I don't necessarily see Canelo changing much that could actually be that competitive with a Bivol. The only way Bivol is going to lose is if Bivol changes up his game plan. But why would he? Canelo, I still remember Canelo when he fought Lara, right? Canelo had real difficulty with just trying to catch a guy that's moving. So I understand why Canelo does the real power shots. And he doesn't necessarily set up the jab as much because he's trying to stop a guy in his tracks. But if you're going up against a guy that's used to getting punched harder, that strategy is not going to work. But we also know he has a hard time fighting guys that move on their feet. So I just don't see like a implementation that Eddie Reynoso could come up with that will have Canelo as the victor, right? Now, Canelo could try to throw more combinations, but Canelo, for the longest, we've seen that Canelo always gasses out. You know, he always takes rounds off and stuff. So we're expecting Canelo to just be a different fighter. I don't see that happening, right? And another factor is I'm pretty sure in the back of Bivol's mind during that fight, he was thinking, yo, this is Canelo Alvarez. Maybe I shouldn't go for the kill because at any time he may land something crazy. But what happens after a guy wins the fight and you build that confidence? The next go around, he can even be more lethal, you know, to a Canelo because he already fought Canelo, and he knows like, hey, I can take his best shots. I done took his hooks and uppercuts, you know. So I don't know, man. I don't see Canelo winning this fight. I think he's shorter. He's not as fluid when it comes to movement. Yeah, Canelo's great at playing his feet and letting his hands go with power shots. But if the guy has more reach and more power against him, is that really that much of an advantage? So I honestly just think it's going to be around the same outcome. You know, like, let's just be real. Yo, I've never seen Canelo that red before. Like, my man, look, yo, who, not trying to be funny. Canelo's the first guy to catch a 10 in Russia, bro. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, don't take this fight. Leave that dude alone. Go back to 168 where you can handle those dudes, you know, like, because Bivol clearly has way more power than any of the guys, than Charlo, than Benavidez, whoever else that has been calling out his name, Boo Boo, even Triple G. Like, think about it. Bivol's power is way stronger than Triple G, and Bivol wasn't even throwing by like hard shots. He was just throwing like basic boxing. He was just boxing, like just counters, jabs, and Canelo just couldn't take it. When anytime Bivol landed a jab, literally you're seeing Canelo's face moving like this. I don't know, man. Like, I just don't see a strategy for Canelo to win unless it's just a slug out fest and then hopefully he lands a lucky punch. And I don't think he needs to do that. And I understand Canelo has that Mexican pride. His ego is on 1,000 trillion. We've seen his ego on display during that fight last night. But his handlers have to just be like, nah, we're not going to do this, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, unless you just want to do it and say, hey, if he loses, he loses, whatever. He's still going to get love regardless as Canelo. But I don't think he has a real chance of winning. So I wouldn't even pursue this rematch. And not to mention, he could get really hurt this time. I'm just saying, because, like, yo, and not to mention, I want to see Canelo fight, you know, Benavidez and Charlo, right? And even Boo Boo, you know, I want to see those fights. But if he goes up against Bivol again and gets really battered, I don't know, man. Like, so yeah, I'm saying, nah, please don't pursue that fight.
It's all about daring to be great, G. Look, when he was
He
was small. He was small for 160. He was small for 168. He's small for 175. You know,
Yo, listen, man, listen.
like what's the? I mean, he's daring to be great.
Maybe, yeah, but 168.
He wants to challenge. Like what Caden was saying. You know, like it's good to be comfortable.
How about this then? I think if anything, he should get a tune-up fight at light heavyweight. Nah, I think about it. Like, Usyk didn't just go to AJ. You know what I mean? Usyk, you know, he had 2 tune-ups before he got to face AJ at heavyweight. Canelo can't just be going to the champion like that. You kind of need to prepare yourself for a dude like a Bivol and a Benavidez and stuff like that. So maybe Canelo, again, the ego. He was so confident that he's gonna win. He's like, yeah, I'm not tune up nothing, bro. I'm going straight for the champs, which I respect. But bruh, for the rematch, I think you need more time off. You need to get a tune-up fight at light heavyweight and then go back at a Bivol. But right now, I don't see a road to victory like everyone else is talking.
He gets up for the big challenges.
I hear y'all.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, G, but it's kind of like if he did that, he wouldn't be Canelo. If he did that, he wouldn't have fought Bivol. So, like, if he wants to do the rematch, I'm okay with it because I do see ways he can improve. I'm not saying he would beat Bivol, but I do see ways in which he can improve his performance. And you're highlighting what Bivol did well. But, you know, I do feel like a lot of what Canelo did in there allowed Bivol to do what he was doing. So I'll give you a few examples. It was a close fight. Although, you know, I didn't score it that way. I had it 9-3 for Bivol. The judges had it 7-5. So one, if I'm Canelo, that alone just tells me like, hey, the judges like what I was doing in there, so maybe I could edge it. You say he gassed, right? He looked a little winded to me as well. Maybe he thinks, you know, I heard that the judges gave him the first 4 rounds. So if he thinks like, so I'm assuming they gave him the first 4 rounds in the 9th round, and that was his 5. So the judges gives him the first 4 rounds based on his aggression and what he was doing. He thinks, hell, if I improve my stamina or change my fight strategy a little bit, I'll win more rounds and win the fight. It could be what's on his mind. For me, here's what I say I would change it from Canelo Alvarez. The first 4 rounds, he exerted more energy than I've ever seen him exert in the first 4 rounds. I feel like trying to get respect from Bivol, throwing hard punches that were being picked off. And to me, that's a waste of energy. You know, like you're playing fight night and you throw these punches and you see your stamina bar just going down and down and down. He was exerting stamina, hitting parts of the body that weren't scoring and that weren't going to help him later on in the fight. So maybe because the fact that he was able to land those punches, though, G, tells me he was in position to land. So when you get him in position to land, utilize more feints to make him make a mistake. And then throw those hard punches to the body. And that's where I feel like the adjustment needs to be made. He was headhunting when he got close. And if I was him, throw those punches to the body. Because even if his arm's there, it's going to press through. And sometimes you're going to get some arm, some glove, but sometimes you're going to press the body. He kept hitting his shoulder, and his shoulder was red. I would have rather it been his stomach that was red.
But
you understand?
But again, he did the same strategy with Callum Smith. Remember, it was Liam Smith, one of the Smiths.
No, you're right, Callum. It was Callum Smith.
Remember, he kept aiming for his arm, and I'm like, why is he aiming for the arm? But then after a while, it hurts, and then the dude tore his bicep. You know what I mean?
Nah, I agree, but this is Bivol, a different person.
That is
he
true.
heard what Bivol said. I'd rather my arm than my face. Right? And he said he knew he was going to do that, so he prepared for it. So he already knew about it. So he probably had people hitting his arms.
And that was Canelo taking away Callum Smith's best punch.
With Bivol, when he had him in punching distance, he didn't utilize feints. He didn't go to the body enough. And that's where I picked Canelo, because I thought those hard punches he was winging up top, hitting on the shoulder, he was going to be throwing to the body. And so I think that strategy changes things because, one, although he got a clean sweep of the first 4 rounds, if he's just uses a fraction of that aggression, punch placement, punch selection, placing the punches to the body, right? Those hard punches to the body where they're going to score and land, I think he does better. But I also think he preserves his stamina for the later rounds. Now we'll get into Dimitry Bivol. He did utilize a great jab. But I'm watching Canelo and I'm saying, you were on the show of the greatest fighter ever to take away a taller person's jab. Why don't you speak to him about it? Iron Mike Tyson, in his prime, was the shorter fighter fighting taller, bigger heavyweights with great jabs, and he used to take it away. How? Head movement. Getting in there. Canelo was stationary. He just basically let the dude pop his head off. He never once came in to the side, switch angles, none of that. And I know he can do it. I know he can do it. So for me, I think if he wants to do the rematch, he really needs to speak with guys like Mike Tyson, those shorter guys who had success getting in on the bigger fighters. Because to me, he should utilize somewhat of the Tyson style. You know, when we train, we got the Tyson special, we got like the Tyson movements, but he really should be. This guy's jabbing, so you want to time his jab, you want to weave in under it, bang him to the body, press him. And so that's the other thing. The other thing with Canelo, he went against the ropes and he was messing around too much. And none of the judges gave him those rounds. I think to everyone it looked like he was tired and he was playing mind games.
Mm-hmm.
But if he would have taken the fight to the center again and tried to jab to the body and use some placement, I think it would have helped him. I think there are a lot of things he can do differently that may give him a better chance to win this fight. You brought up Bivol's power. That's always going to be. That was always the danger. But Canelo, he has power too. And maybe he lands one. That changes the trajectory of the fight in the rematch. But the thing is, he didn't get beat so badly that I'm like, yo, don't try this again. I think the better question, G, would be, do you go immediately into a fight with Bivol next, or do you take the Triple G, try to get a win, get a defense of your undisputed titles, and then go back and fight Bivol? And maybe in that time, Bivol can fight the winner of Beterbiev and Joe Smith. And if he wins that fight, it only makes their fight bigger. So, I mean, potentially.
That's a good point. I think Triple G or even a Benavidez would be a good tune-up for Bivol, you know, because these guys are power hitters, but they're still not as strong as Bivol, though. That's the only thing. Like, that was
he's going to have to change his strategy for Bivol because Bivol is tall, strong, but most importantly, he has, I told you, his footwork's underrated, underrated footwork. He showed his boxing IQ. The dude was definitely underrated. But the thing with Canelo is Canelo went in there with like this mentality that like he was the bigger guy and he was going for the knockouts. He was throwing everything hard. And he didn't show much of his boxing skill. And for me, I think the next fight, he's going to have to fight like the smaller fighter who's in there to hit and not get hit, there to place punches. He's going to have to cut off the ring better than he did. He's like walking this dude down like, no, you got to anticipate, try to beat him to the spot, and then you got to be ready to land good punches. And I just think that this was high-speed chess. This fight, and Canelo wasn't prepared for that. He didn't think he was going to get that. He thought he was just going to walk through him, and I think it threw him for a loop. He wasn't prepared for that. So I think his mindset will be better for the rematch. I don't know if he necessarily wins the rematch, but I think he can improve, definitely. So that's my take.
Let us know how you feel in the comment section. Please like and subscribe. Check us out on Instagram and Twitter, and please check out our podcast on all major streaming services. We are the Boxing Bros.